Right now, I want to bring in my good friend and co-host, Jeff Small, president of Arbor Financial Services, a retirement income store located in Melbourne, Florida. He's also the brand ambassador for the Retirement Income Store and the Amazon best-selling author of the book, Turning Financial Planning Right Side Up. But we also want to bring in a very good friend of the income generation, and that's Jon Najarian, co-founder of MarketRebellion.com and co-author of the new book, Follow the Smart Money. Jon, as usual, it's my pleasure. Thanks for being here.
My pleasure as well to be with both of you. Thank you.
So, okay, I've got to, I asked you this 3 months ago when we were pretty much in June. We were 3 months out of the market lows from the pandemic. And I said, back then, were you surprised that the market had recovered? And you said, to the extent it had at that point, and you said that you weren't. Well, now the market has hit new record highs. And for a while, it was hitting new record highs like almost every day. So I have to ask you again, are you surprised now the extent to which still there being some uncertainty out there, the extent to which the market has hit new highs?
And I'm still not really surprised, Dave and Jeff, and the reasons are several. Obviously, the Fed and the Congress, at least up until May, the Congress was participating. They haven't given us another stimulus package yet, but Congress and the Fed were both very supportive of the economy. And given what happens during those shutdown times, none of us were really surprised to see people, sectors in particular, that didn't have to touch people directly, that didn't have to be involved in hospitality. Obviously the tech stocks, we weren't surprised to see those catching a bid. Now I think it's a question of people have become addicted to many of these tech stocks, not only to trading and investing in them, but also they're on these apps all the time. I mean, everything from Hulu and Netflix and Disney Plus to the Target, Amazon, Walmart. Walmart just came out with their version of Prime to compete with Amazon. Target has its shipped version as well. And I think that just continues, guys. I think people just get used to something. They stick with it. We've seen how that works with Zoom, that people just love the app once they're familiar with it. And it's really tough to pry them off of those apps. And then you get that multiple expansion from all of that traffic being driven in one direction.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what we're seeing now. And so I guess with over 25% of the S&P being based upon, the big seven, I guess it's no surprise to see the S&P hitting new highs also because the way it's weighted toward those tech companies. Jeff?
Jon, we're getting a lot of questions from our clients about what's going to happen on November 3rd. How is the market going to be impacted? Help our viewers, help our listeners shed some light on that because we're really discussing how to develop organic portfolios today. And so a lot of people are worried about what's going to happen either way, no matter who gets elected to the markets. And so shed some light on that if you can for our viewers and our listeners on what they should be preparing for, what they should expect potentially.
All right. Well, you guys are right at the center of it, both of you two, because anything in Florida is going to be a big part of who gets elected this November 3rd, or it might even take till December 3rd, who knows. But the Vice President Biden has said that he will increase taxes, although he keeps saying only on those that make over $400,000 a year. I think the market is nervous about that because increasing taxes on corporate and increasing taxes on folks that make over $400,000 a year is something that makes the market nervous. So the more that we would see Vice President Biden moving towards President Biden, I think the market would get very nervous and you'd see a big jump in volatility as well as perhaps some sell-off going into that. But I think it's going to be not quite too close to call, but I think it's going to be extremely tight. And one of the outlier things might really be, Jeff, and maybe instead of seeing all that volatility that I just spoke about, if we start seeing a movement, because of the law and order side or whichever, and I'm not trying to be political, but I'm just saying, if we start seeing people pushing towards President Trump, in particular in the swing states, which again, Florida is one of those swing states now because of the changing demographic and so forth.
John, we just hope, I hate to interrupt you, we need to take a commercial break. We just hope that we can get the voting straight this time and not have all these darn hanging chads down here in Florida. But we need to take a break. We'll be back with more words of wisdom from our good friend Jon Najarian in a moment. We'll be right back. Now it's time to bring back my co-host Jeff Small, as well as our good friend Jon Najarian. So John, sorry I had to cut you off for the benefit of our sponsors there a moment ago. But I agree with you. I understand the concern the markets might have about taxes going up. But how about the other part of it? How about the fact that Congress wants to allocate, $3 trillion, not just $1 trillion. They want to, they want to have much more money going to stimulus. Now, for the average American, can that maybe somewhat counterbalance this tax concern in case of a Biden win?
Well, as you know, we're going to have to find a way to pay for any stimulus that we put out there. Now, obviously, what they will do is issue bonds, and I'm all in favor of issuing bonds at the lowest interest rate, at the lowest borrowing rate that we've seen in anybody's lifetime. That makes sense. If we do it in a prudent way, and if this was infrastructure, not just a gift to cities and states maybe that have mismanaged money, then I think it could be very strong, for instance, David. But I worry that the direction that some of the people in Congress might take is just to throw that money out there and or to bail out bad decisions that cities and states have made. And I don't know that that helps us. I think that really hinders us. And then we risk downgrades by S&P and everybody else, basically all the rating agencies around the world. Sure.
You don't want to be rewarding irresponsible behavior even by municipalities. Jeff?
Well, besides the tax plan that Biden has laid out, which is increasing corporate rates from 21 to 28, which would be an 8 to 12% reduction in earnings, I think that would be a disaster for the market. But there's even a larger undertone here that's scaring people, and it's called socialization. I mean, just imagine what happens if the Congress goes blue and the White House goes blue, and they're going to pretty much be able to push through any socialized programs they want. The markets are not going to react well to that environment, and that's really what's scaring people the most. What are you seeing up there? Is anybody discussing this, in New York or in your group?
You're exactly right, Jeff. That is what people would worry about. They wouldn't worry as much about a Biden presidency if the Republicans held on to the Senate and or made some gains in the House. Then it would be more of that, balance. But if it was a blue wave, that's the worst thing that the market could envision right now, is that blue wave. I don't think we're going to get it, and the reasons are myriad, but one of them is the protests that have gotten so violent in Portland, in Seattle, in Washington, D.C., in Kenosha, in Chicago, in New York City. I mean, it's all over the place. I think a lot of folks, in particular suburban moms and dads, are not going to be down with that. And so I think, Dave, that's one of the things that maybe helps keep that from being a blue wave. And I certainly hope it does, because I think that would be a disaster, both for the markets and for America.
Sure. And John, we have a little bit less than 2 minutes left. So since we're talking about income reinvestment and growing portfolios organically, I want to talk a little bit about options. For example, if we're investing in the stock market, we're investing in higher dividend paying common stocks because it's all about income. It's all about yield. And of course, you can write covered calls on those and kick up the income, as we do for some clients. But how about the tech stocks that you're talking about? I mean, it's kind of harder to do that with a lot of the technology companies, is it not?
Well, and that's one of the good things that has just occurred with that big tech correction that we saw, even though it only took 4 days or so to get to a full 20% correction in the case of Apple, even more than that in the case of Tesla. And I'm calling Tesla tech stock. But the good thing about that is that it caused the stocks to get cheaper quickly and the volatility to go up, Dave. So you're getting rewarded for selling those calls even more now. So I think your income generation folks are going to appreciate that. And yet these stories are still the same about Microsoft, Facebook, and Apple.
20 seconds. You think we're at the point of rotation now out of tech into more traditional cyclical companies, or do you think it's still too premature?
I think that doesn't really start happening until first or even second quarter of 2021, Dave. So I'd say you have a little time. You could start nibbling, but don't go whole hog on that yet.
Okay, so it's basically a balk. The pitcher balked. We saw a little rotation a couple days. Might go right back to tech. As usual, John, thanks so much. Incredible words of wisdom. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And you stay with us. We have more coming up right here on the Income Generation. I'm David Scranton, and we'll be right back.